Hey everybody, hope you guys are all healthy and safe. So this video is my long-term review of the OnePlus 8 Pro. But before I begin, I want to take a second to thank my sponsor, Invoice Ninja. So some of you guys may know that in addition to making YouTube videos, I also write freelance articles for several publications. And one of the most stressful things about being a freelancer is you have to keep track of all your invoices so you can get paid, because we have to send them in to different clients, different publications, just to keep track of all of them. And Invoice Ninja is a software available on iOS and Android, and also on PC and Mac, that makes keeping track of your invoices very easily. They have a really clean and simple interface. You just have to input your client info, input how much they owe you, and the app will keep track and organize all your payments that's to come. So if you're a freelancer or you run your own small business, you might want to check out invoiceninja.com just to have a look at what they have to offer. Okay, let's continue with the review. So I've been reviewing OnePlus phones since the OnePlus 3. If you've read my previous OnePlus reviews before, or if you've read any previous OnePlus reviews before, you'll notice that all of us reviewers generally say the same 3 or 4 things when it comes to praising OnePlus phones. They are, number 1, they're great value. Number 2, OnePlus phones are very, very fast. Number 3, OxygenOS is a really damn good software. And number 4, OnePlus just gives you more RAM than any other phone. I'm talking about the previous OnePlus phones. Like OnePlus would give you 6 gigs of RAM when other phones were on 4. And then later, OnePlus would give you 8 or 12 gigs of RAM when other phones were giving you 6. Now with the OnePlus 8 Pro, suddenly things have changed. The previous 4 things that I said no longer applies. As you probably already know, the OnePlus 8 Pro is no longer really cheap. It's no longer like the best deal on the market. And while OxygenOS is still a really good software, I'd argue Oppo's ColorOS has gotten at least as good, if not even surpassed it in some ways. Generally, Android software have gotten really good across the board, except Vivo. Vivo's software still kind of sucks. But this year with the OnePlus 8 Pro, those 4 things are not really true with the phone anymore. At least not so much that it's a benefit over other phones. Number 1, the price. You already know OnePlus phones this year have gotten close to the $900 US mark. So it's no longer the best deal on the market. I still think it's a pretty good deal, but it's not like an awesome steal over value. Number 2, the OnePlus 8 Pro is very fast, but so are many other phones now. The Oppo Find X2 Pro, the Xiaomi Mi 10 Pro, they're both very fast too, very zippy. And then while OxygenOS is still the best software around, I'd argue that Oppo's ColorOS is catching up, and it's almost as good neck and neck with OxygenOS. And finally, on the memory front, the OnePlus 8 Pro gives you either 8 or 12 gigs of RAM. That's very good, but again, that's the same as 10 other phones on the market right now. It's no longer giving you way more RAM than any other phone. So the 4 areas that me and other reviewers have praised OnePlus phones in the past, we can't really say that about the OnePlus 8 Pro anymore. OnePlus does not have those 4 benefits over other brands anymore. So I think OnePlus knows this. It knows that this year, every phone's gonna be super fast. So it's really impossible to make the OnePlus 8 Pro that much faster than everyone else. So instead, OnePlus is focusing on giving you the most polished and refined experience yet. And I think they've succeeded. I've used this phone for quite a while, and there is no weakness to this phone. Okay, so let's go over the hardware of the OnePlus 8 Pro really quick. Although this is very similar to the Oppo Find X2 Pro. So you have a beautiful, gorgeous 6.8-inch OLED display with a resolution that goes up to Quad HD, but I've set it at just 1080p right now because I'm running at 120 Hertz. Now, you can also run 120 Hertz with Quad HD resolution, but that kills your battery life, so I would recommend against it. Just run it at 120, 1080p. That's the best option. So even at 1080p, the screen is absolutely stunning. Viewing angles are great, and I like curved edges. I know not everyone does, but just looking at the phone, especially at the sides, it looks like the visuals are spilling off of the edges. And when you use a bold wallpaper, the apps look like it's like floating on the screen. It's just a really stunning display. You have a hole punch right here. It's really small. It houses a 16 megapixel camera. Now the back of the phone, this design is almost exactly the same as the OnePlus 7 Pro, so it's slightly boring, but I do like the new color this year, and it does not attract fingerprints. There's a matte coating on this phone, so I really like it. Now there's a quad camera system on the back, headlined by a 48 megapixel f1.8 sensor with a pretty large image sensor of 1/1.43 inch, so that helps it with low light performance. Although the image sensor on the Xiaomi Mi 10 Pro and on the Huawei P40 Pro are both a little bit larger. And then you have a 48 megapixel wide angle camera with an f2.2 aperture that shoots 116-degree field of vision. Now, having the wide angle camera and the main camera be the same megapixel count is something I love a lot. Huawei started doing this first, and then Oppo and OnePlus have jumped on board, because that allows you to get wide angle images that are relatively consistent and uniform with the main image. On many other phones, like on an iPhone and a Samsung, when you take a picture with the main camera and then the wide angle camera, you see the wide angle camera, it's a lot less detailed. That's not the case here. In terms of zoom, there's an 8 megapixel telephoto lens here that gets up to 3 times lossless zoom and 30 times digital zoom. So yeah, the zoom's not going to be as good as the Huawei P40 Pro or the Oppo Find X2 Pro, because those phones have a periscope zoom lens. But as you can see here, 10x zoom is still pretty good. 30x is, it's okay. It's not something you can post on Instagram, but it's serviceable if you need to read a street sign from really far away. And then there's a 5 megapixel depth sensor for bokeh effects. And then finally, there's like a color lens, a color temperature lens that the less said about it, the better. It's kind of pointless. So basically, even though there's 4 cameras, I would say it's really a triple lens setup. It's a really capable polished system that captures really smooth videos, as you can see here. But for the most part, it's not a huge jump over the OnePlus 7 Pro's camera. The biggest improvement, it's in the wide angle lens. Now, one of the things that's always set the OnePlus hardware apart from other Android phones is this notification toggle switch right here. It allows you to quickly cycle between ring or silence or vibrate immediately. This is a feature that's already seen on iPhones, but no other Android phones offer this. A lot of reviewers love this. I don't really use it that much, but it's nice to have because it doesn't really get in the way. But the thing that made me love OnePlus phones in the past have always been the software, because OxygenOS is, in my opinion, the best Android skin around. It used to be the best Android skin by miles. I think Oppo's ColorOS has caught up by a lot. It's neck and neck now. But if I have to pick one, OxygenOS is still my favorite software. Everything about it is highly customizable. So you go into buttons and gestures, you can choose from on-screen buttons or navigation gestures, and you can hide this little bar down below if you like. A lot of phones don't give you the option to do that. You have quick gestures right here, like 3 fingers swipe to grab a screenshot. You can draw an O to launch something, draw a V to launch something, draw a circle to launch a camera. One of the shortcuts I really love that's not seen in any other Android phone is you can control music playback without turning on your screen. So I can stop music by just pause, draw on it to start up, draw an arrow to skip track, draw backwards to restart the track. On any other phone, if I want to change my music, I have to wake the screen and then tap on the widget. Oh yeah, there's stereo speakers in this phone too, and it gets pretty loud. It's the same speakers on the Oppo Find X2 Pro, to be honest. So there's sound coming out here and also at the bottom. So the camera app of the OnePlus 8 Pro is pretty intuitive. You can access different shooting modes by swiping through all of them, but if you don't want to swipe so much, you can just pull up and you have this quick menu here that allows you to tap into any mode immediately without needing to swipe like 5 times just to get to video. You can also switch to the selfie camera with just 1 tap right here, and you can zoom right here. The zoom dial is easily controllable with 1 hand, whether you're holding it with your left or your right hand, and that's something some phones don't really do well too. Now, zooming between the lenses are also relatively smooth. It's not as smooth as an iPhone. No Android phone will beat that, but this is not bad. It's better than zooming on, say, a Samsung phone, to be honest. Now, by default, the camera shoots at 12 megapixel. That's a pixel bin version of that 48 megapixel sensor. You can turn it on to 48, but again, I'd recommend against it. Just shoot in 12 and let the pixel bin and the software algorithm take care of business. And right here, you have this icon. When you turn it on, that turns on the macro lens, the macro function of the wide angle camera. When you do that, you can get very close to something, but then make sure you turn it off before you go back to regular camera, because when this is on, you cannot zoom that far in. You have to turn it off before you can zoom. Now, as for portraits, unfortunately I don't have another human here for me to test portraits, so I've just been testing on inanimate objects like a piece of cake or this monster from Monsters Inc. I don't know his name. I think his name is Sully, But let's try to take a selfie portrait anyway. I'm not sure if this is picking up. The depth sensor here, it's a little bit hard to pick up. Like, you have to be at the right distance and see the green icon to pick up before the depth effects kicks in. In general, it's just a little bit trickier to shoot portraits with the OnePlus 8 Pro than with like the Pixel 4, which is basically point and shoot. But when the depth effects do kick in, you get pretty pleasing portraits with natural edge detection and pretty creamy bokeh. Okay, so I think it's getting dark now, which is good because I'm trying to test a low light video performance, because I already showed you the daytime video performance and it was really good. Stabilization is on point, and you can pan in and out from the wide angle camera all the way up to 10 times zoom. As long as you have good daylight, you can get a really respectable video, one of the best on Android. Now let's test when it's low light situation. Now this is not super dark, but this is definitely beginning to get, you know, like dim. It's not ideal lighting situation for a smartphone camera, but we'll test the video right now. I'm going to show you some photo samples. So in general, like the Oppo Find X2 Pro, during the day you're going to get really good images from the main 48 megapixel camera and the wide angle camera. The wide angle camera, I just love shooting with this phone and the Oppo Find X2 Pro because you can zoom in on a wide angle image and not lose details. Once it gets dim a little bit, you still get pretty good shots, and there's a night mode that you can use, but I would recommend only using the night mode when you're shooting in pitch black conditions. When you're in a situation like right now, which is dim but not too dark, you don't really need night mode. The main 48 megapixel sensor with that pretty large 1/1.4 inch image sensor is good enough to pull in lighting, along with the pixel binning that further, you know, adds light into the image because you're combining 4 pixels worth of data into one. You can also capture slow motion videos that are pretty respectable, but for slow motion you're gonna need to shoot it during the day. At night it's gonna be a mess. Now as for battery life, there's a 4500 milliamp hour battery inside, and when I run it at 120 Hertz with 1080p resolution, it has been good enough to last me all day. It's not like a battery endurance beast like the Huawei P40 Pro, but it's enough to go from morning to night till midnight and without on a single charge. If I want to charge it, obviously OnePlus has warp charge and it tops up very fast, basically like 3% per minute. Now for the first time on OnePlus phone, there's wireless charging here, and if you're using OnePlus's specific wireless charger, it tops up really fast, like 30 watts. It tops up really fast, like 30 watts charging. So that about wraps it up for my review with the OnePlus 8 Pro. I'm going to have more videos coming up, including on the Meizu 17 Pro and the Huawei P40 Pro Plus. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be one of the first 2 or 3 people to get the Meizu and the Huawei phone. So if you're interested in getting up to date, the earliest information on the biggest Chinese releases, subscribe to my channel or follow me on Instagram at Ben's Gadget Reviews. Once again, I would like to say a thank you to my video sponsor, Invoice Ninja. If you're a freelancer, freelance writer, graphic designer, whatever, and you're tired of dealing with paperwork and sending individual invoices and keeping track and losing track of your payments, go check out Invoice Ninja. They streamlined the entire freelancing experience, and you no longer have to worry about, oh, did I send that invoice in time and when am I getting payment? You just have to log into the app and it will tell you exactly, list everything out in detail, when your next payment is, when it's supposed to be due, and it'll take care of all the logistics for you. InvoiceNinja.com. If you're interested, go check it out. Thanks for watching.